It is a bit scary to know that the most valuable private company in the world has your address and has shown up and has questions for you. They were asking for every former employee that we had spoken to and what we said to them, every congressional office that we spoke to, every potential investor that we spoke to. Tyler is just one of many advocates suddenly being targeted. Welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. What you just saw there was basically OpenAI knocking on the doors of people who had spoken ill of them. Why are they so scared of what people are saying? Well, this is part of the reason why on Friday, the 5th of January 26, OpenAI dropped a bombshell. We are starting to test as and ChatGPT free and go new item on option tiers. That's right. OpenAI is incorporating ads into ChatGPT. Now, for any other startup, this is normal, even expected at this point. But for OpenAI, it's an admission that things aren't going so well. In fact, it's their last resort. Those aren't my words, but Sam Altman's words in October of 2022. He stated, "I kind of think of ads as like a last resort for us for a business model. I would do it if it meant that was the only way to get everybody in the world like access to great services. But if we can find something that doesn't do that, I'd prefer that." So after hundreds of billions of dollars in investment, increased competition, step-aside projects like the Sora app losing $150 million per day, having trillions in spending commitments. Are we witnessing the beginning of the end for OpenAI after taking for pass of all the realm on Earth and causing a myriad of social, environmental, and economic problems for everyone? There is a sizable section of people that would love to see this company go down in flames. And if things continue just the way they are, they just may get the wish. There is talk of the whole company going bankrupt by 27. As former Fidelity asset manager George Noble states, quote, "I've watched companies employed for decades. This one has all the warning signs." You are watching Cold Fusion TV. Last episode, we saw how AI failed at 90% of freelancer work. But in this episode, we're specifically looking at OpenAI and the problems they're facing. From Anthropic's Claude to the open-source Chinese models, the consumer AI landscape has rapidly changed. Today, OpenAI is no longer the clear leader it once was. Look, the way this works is we're going to tell you it's totally hopeless to compete with us on training foundation models you shouldn't try, and it's your job to lie train way. And I believe both of those things. I think it is pretty hopeless, but they've spent too much money they don't have. The competition is catching up and they're feeling the heat. In a nutshell, it doesn't look good. They've lost $12 billion in a single quarter. Their traffic has been falling for 1 year straight. Both Salesforce and Apple have ditched them for Gemini. Top leadership is leaving and they need $5.3 billion to become profitable. At this rate, even NVIDIA sounds less enthusiastic about investing in them. Can I ask quickly about OpenAI again? Sure. So yesterday you said that the NVIDIA is not going to invest as much as unwinding in OpenAI. That's what the current run. We never said we were going to invest $100 billion in one round. That never was said. But how about the overall commitment, because last September there was never a commitment. It was if they invited us. They invited us to so let's start over again. They invited us to invest up to $1 million and of course we were very happy and honored that they invited us, but we will invest one step at a time. Alright. But is that overall commitment still stands or it's not a commitment? I told you just now. Okay. Yeah. You keep putting words in my mouth. It's not yeah. Yeah. I know that. Yeah. ET invited us to invest up to $1 billion and we are honored that he invited us. We will consider each round one at a time. Yeah. It appears that confidence in OpenAI is fading. As reported by the Financial Times, their closest partner, Microsoft, has signaled that they're distancing themselves from OpenAI. Microsoft's AI chief, Mustafa Sullivan, said that Microsoft is aiming to be self-sufficient in the AI space. So, the problems for OpenAI can be split into 4 main parts. 1. The scaling problem. 2. Losing market share. 3. The financial black hole. And 4. The trust problem. If OpenAI was the only company on Earth with this technology, then maybe there'd be more of a chance to overcome these challenges. But with so much competition, it's going to be tough. Now, researching this topic made me realize one thing. Understanding software is crucial, which is why we've partnered with today's sponsor, Boot Dev, to help you learn how to code. It sounds great in theory, but most people just watch a few tutorials, copy some code, and tens of up. But with Boot Dev, instead of passively watching videos, you learn by building things and solving problems from day one. Just like how developers learn on the job. We've been using Boot, Dev Call Fusion, and it feels more like a GIMP than a course. You earn XP, complete quests, and 5 bosses, all while learning real back-end development skills. Their curriculum takes you through languages like Python, SQL, and Go. And when you're stuck, Boot, Dev's AI tutor called Boost helps guide you back on track. They've also just launched the training grounds where you can grind unlimited challenges to lock in your skills before moving forward. Even if you vibe code for your projects, knowing how to code results in much better outcomes. All of Boot. Dev's content is free to read and watch, and a paid membership unlocks the interactive coding, AI assistance, project checking, and game mechanics. Tier is also a Talday no questions asked refund and a free demo of the interactive experience on every course. So if you've ever wanted to learn how to code or actually stick with it this time, head to Boot, Dev and use my code Fusion to get 10% off your first year on the annual plan. Thanks to Boot, Dev for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the story. The first problem for OpenAI is that the capabilities of ChatGPT have somewhat stalled. It's at the infancy stages, but you can tell by the recent decisions. Sam Altman has gone from curing cancer to AI 6 bots and a meme slot factory and more recently a translator app. All of this isn't a sign of a healthy business. Moreover, AI capabilities that are getting exponentially more powerful. ChatGPT made an absolute splash in its release in December 2022. ChatGPT 4 was another leap forward, but GPT-5 and beyond wasn't quite the revolution that was promised by Sam Altman. It seemed like stagnation had hit and hit hard. But why is this? It's an issue called the scaling problem. The scaling problem in AI, put simply, is the following. Giving elements exponentially more compute doesn't make them proportionally smarter. Once upon a time, this was true, but that seems to be coming to an end. Here is computer scientist Cal Newport to explain it in more detail. It takes a second to get through the story, but it's interesting. In the beginning, we had language models. So we had these for a long time, and they were pretty good. You give a bunch of text, and they were pretty grammatically good. They could produce pretty fluent text, but it would veer off and they couldn't really respond well to specific questions, but that would rise, so we had language models these would use to get this sort of tis for to like this legal fight of tis to get tis. That was exciting. Then the second breakthrough comes. There's a research study. Tier is a researcher at OpenAI named Jared Kaplan, and he leads a group of researchers at OpenAI that include Dario Amade, who went on to become the CEO of Anthropic and actually brought Kaplan with them, and these are a pretty simple experiment. They took basically GPT and said what happens if we make this bigger. It seems like an obvious thing to check, but there is this whole conventional wisdom in machine learning at this time that says like, look, you can make a model too big. If you make it too big, it's just going to memorize the training, and then when you give it new examples, it'll be terrible. And they said, let's check what happens if we actually just make these things bigger and forget out the concern. And what they found in that paper was, it's just much better. It defied the conventional wisdom of the case within the field of machine learning, which was like, don't get too big. Your model's going to stop working if it's just too big. Just going to, in it. They're like, oh, it gets better. And not only does it get better, but it gets better pretty fast. And they drew a curve through the data points they had, and they extrapolated the curve, and it went up really fast. And so they said, let's try this. And the thing they tried it on was GPT. The GPT-3 model have encouraged OpenAI to just make the model bigger, 5 times bigger. The performance was so high that it validated the scaling laws. This sparked a frenzy in Silicon Valley. Soon Sam Altman was saying that AI would automate the entire economy. So not only did it jump ahead, it jumped ahead fast. So it really validated this curve. The normies don't know this because they weren't as plugged into the AI world, but this sends Silicon Valley going crazy and like, oh my god, if we keep making this bigger GPT-5 more sis, this thing is going to be artificial general intelligence. It'll be able to do anything a human can do. We might only be live 5 years away. Alright, so what happens next? Well, they say we need to show this to the public. So ChatGPT is GPT-10 for public consumption. So now the public all knows about this. 4 months later, ZPTR comes out and GPTR leaped up the curve exactly as predicted. Exactly. Huge leap forward exactly as predicted by the paper. So now they're like, oh my god, we're like 2 iterations away. Like this is it. All the money in the world needs to come to us because whoever wins this race is going to control the economy. But despite this massive scale, we might be reaching diminishing returns. GPT-5. They started working on it right away. So they built an even bigger data center, an even bigger model. They're calling this Project Orion by the summer of 2024. So last summer, they finished training this thing. Elman is telling his people, this thing is going to blow away GPT. And it's like, this thing scares me. What this thing is going to do's are, right. Like I don't do this is it. We're about to go through the looking glass. They train this thing, but then it stops working better than GPT or. Like a crap. This leaping up the curve every time we make this much bigger. This didn't work and more. And so there was like this realization of just making models bigger and training them on more data. The scaling law broke. It broke around GPT-4. There's a real risk that there might be inherent limits to current day elements. Just adding more data might not be feasible for an exponential increase. Think of it this way. It's like a father saying, my son was born just months ago and in that time he's gone from crawling to walking and recently he's started running. In 2 years, little Timmy is definitely going to be able to fly. Obviously, that's not how it works. But it's the same concept here. There are certain limitations, mathematical limitations that are not crossable by steering up. I show it clearly mathematically in my book. So there were many different ideas of how to advance AI. One was we already actually have all the techniques that we need and we just need to scale them. But that was considered a very extreme opinion. And then on the other extreme it was we don't even have the techniques yet. And interestingly recently there's a New York Times story that says why Wiley won't get to AGI and time soon became myths. And he cites this stat that Sambipimus Pao of the longest-standing most respected AI researchers actually still think to the stat that techniques to get to have the techniques to get to AGI if we will ever. So it's where we're kind of coming full circle now and it is starting to become unpopular again, this idea that you can just scale your way to so-called intelligence. GPT I need to wash my car wash is wine away. Should I walk or drive? Honestly, 1 meters is barely a stroll. It'll take just a minute or 2 on foot. Unless you've got heavy gear or there's something unusual going on, walking is probably the simplest and most pleasant choice. Plus, you'll save a little gas and get a tiny bit of fresh air. Alright. So, you think I should walk to the car wash instead of driving my car there? Test what I do. It's a short jaunt, and it'll probably be less hassle than starting the car just for that. Alright. So, how I wash my car? If I walked there, you'll just bring what you need. Maybe ask Mo back with your payment method, and the car wash will have everything else. Once you get there, they'll handle the washing while you wait. You walk back with a sparkling car and maybe a little extra pep in your step. So my question is how will the car get washed if the car is still at my house? See what you mean now. If the car stays at home, it's not getting any cleaner, right? So yes, to actually wash it, you'll need to bring the car along. In that case, driving toast wine makes perfect sense. Why ChatGPT and other elements can be extremely brilliant even in high physics and maths, they don't yet have a true model of the world. Some computer scientists believe that that's an integral part of intelligence. Now, I could be wrong. A new fundamental neural network technique could be discovered and that could move things along again. But as it stands right now, it seems that we're reaching a local limit. Now, I have to be clear, every AI company faces this problem, but some are faring better than others. And one of those is Google. Now that Google has found their footing after the shock release of ChatGPT, new data suggests that ChatGPT is losing market share to Gemini. ChatGPT's market share dropped to 7% in January, which is approximately 20% lower than its A6% market share in January 2025. ChatGPT usage also stalled in late 2025. Average daily time spent per user dropped from 20 minutes to 20 minutes. While both have their strengths and weaknesses, Gemini appears to be much better in research, real-time information, and multimodal tasks. While ChatGPT is better at writing, coding, and conversation, real-time information, and multimodal tasks, uploading a photo or pointing a phone camera at a scene and getting information out it is arguably more useful for the everyday person, especially on mobile. So Apple pushing OpenAI aside and going for Gemini makes sense. It's amusing to think that back in late 2022, Google was caught with their pens down when ChatGPT first came out, but today they've more than caught up. And after all, it was Google researchers who laid the groundwork for the AI revolution with their twin system breakthrough of the transformer architecture. OpenAI simply took Google's work and ran with it. So in theory, Google researchers have the brains to come up with new theories in computer science to push AI forward. Some recent papers include nested learning and Sima 2, an AI that can reason and play video games. Generally, OpenAI, on the other hand, has a problem with staff continuously leaving. AI images is also another loss for OpenAI. The release of Google's Nano Banana Pro in November of 2025 triggered an internal crisis at OpenAI. Sam called a code red and paused all other projects to focus on image generation, but they still ended up falling short. And 10 there's the flood of open-source Chinese models. Kling AI and Gwyn are also gaining ground. 10 there's the wild cards like Google's Projection E, and AI the buzzwords albeit static just from a prompt. All of this is to say that OpenAI has treats from all sides. Knowing this is possibly the worst time for OpenAI to be shopping around for billions more in investment if just in a year's time the competition will only be stronger. But it is a business. So I'm just wondering, like, eventually is the idea to kind of like license technologies? Will you have customers you're going to be customizing algorithms for them, or how is it going to work? You know, the honest answer is we have no idea. We have never made any revenue. We have no current plans to make revenue. We have no idea how we may one day generate revenue. We have made a soft promise to investors that once we've built this sort of generally intelligent system, basically we will ask it to figure out a way to generate an investment return for you. The third issue for OpenAI is the company's finances. The publication, the information, saw internal documents from OpenAI, and the numbers don't look good. Setting aside the myriad of lawsuits, including a now wine-free $4 billion one from Elon Musk, there's some real financial problems. After hundreds of billions in investment, 26 will see a $1 billion loss. That's roughly 3 times worse than early 25 estimates. OpenAI expects their first profit of worth $1 billion in 20 but that's after losing for $4 billion first. By some estimates, they'll be out of money by 2026. OpenAI is committed to spending over $1 trillion in AI data center infrastructure over 8 years, and that's despite only bringing in $1.3 billion a year in recurring revenue. That's on promising of what they're promising to spend. OpenAI has also agreed to pay Oracle $60 billion per year starting in 2027. And in all of this, somehow OpenAI predicts that they'll be at $1 billion revenue by 2010. That's close to what NVIDIA makes. So, it's possible, but unlikely. Other investors think so, too. Blue Owl Capital recently pulled out of Austin's billion deal to fund an Oracle OpenAI data center in Michigan. It could be a sign that investors are worried about OpenAI's ability to pay them back. Google, on the other hand, doesn't really have to worry about cash flow. The company made a $6 billion in 9 months, and they can basically pour as much money as they want into AI. OpenAI, on the other hand, has to scream at the top of their lungs to attract more venture capital. There is yet more company behavior that indicates financial trouble. There is the floundering to spend $6.4 billion acquiring Johnny Ive's design firm, and that's to build an AI hardware device. But according to reports, the development is going poorly and it caught end of like the human's AI pin. The AI erotica version of ChatGPT is self-explanatory, and the Sora app's user base has collapsed. Despite not having much to show versus the competition, Sam needs to talk a big game to get the investment rolling in. Curing cancer, replacing your GP, and discovering new science is a massive promise. But can we trust him? The final issue for OpenAI lies with Sam himself. His track record, frankly, is poor. It's almost like Almond's entire career was a series of promises that didn't pan out. All starting from his first company, Looped, that he founded in 2015. It was kind of like a strange GPS-based social network. Sam Altman claimed a massive user base of Fist, but they didn't exist. In reality, they had only finite users, but he sold off the company for millions anyway. The next example happened in 2014 with Reddit. He scraped the whole website to feed into OpenAI's products, and then he promised to give 1/5 of the value back to the community, but this never happened. Next, OpenAI co-founder Ilya Sutskever, who has since left OpenAI, has accused Sam of a consistent pattern of lying. According to insiders, Sam Altman lied to OpenAI board members before being fired in 2023. So with this kind of track record, is he the guy who's going to deliver trillions in value, or is most of this just talk pumping of new investment? I'll leave that up to you. So a little personal story. Back in 2022, I believe I was in Melbourne and I watched Sam Altman give a talk. After the talk, he was swarmed by crowds of people wanting to take a photo with him. But today, the sentiment can be more different. And is partly to, you're with this? In 2015, OpenAI started as a non-profit. It was meant to benefit humanity. Now the only thing the company cares about is valuation and saying whatever they need to attract new investment by any means necessary. So to summarize everything, OpenAI went from a non-profit that had no plans to make revenue to a for-profit company that commits to spending $1 trillion on data centers, $1 trillion for diminishing returns due to fundamental scaling problem with ELMs, all the while losing billions of dollars and losing out to growing competition in a sector that may just become a commodity in the end. Just in my opinion, it's not really a great financial bet as it stands. But after all that we've talked about, what do you think? So you think OpenAI will survive or will the competition eat them alive? Anyway, that's about it from me. My name is Dogo and you've been watching Cold Fusion, and I'll catch you again soon for the next episode. Cheers, guys. Have a good one. Cold Fusion. It's me thinking.